Hey, what's up? This is Luke Stokes. It is Wednesday morning and I am sitting in traffic because I'm going to a meeting downtown. Yeah, there's cars everywhere. I normally work from home. I hate sitting in traffic, so I'm grumpy. Want to give an update on the whole Steem drama situation. So to give you a recap, Tron and Justin Sun buy Steem.com, Steem Incorporated, and 20% of the stake. And that 20% of the stake, since the beginning of Steem, even as Steem was being created, had a promise to the community, and investors took that promise seriously about how that stake would be used to develop the ecosystem, not participate in governance, those type of things. So that 20% of the stake is now owned by Tron. Just that same week, Justin Sun voted in the delegated proof of stake system on Tron in a way that really got that community upset, because it was a similar thing with those tokens were not supposed to be used for governance, but they were. So a lot of the major stakeholders, dApp developers, witnesses, and community were demanding that the Steem witnesses protect their property. They were concerned that their chain was also going to get hard forked out, and the tokens were going to be moved over to Tron, the apps are going to be moved to Tron, everything that the Tron Foundation published without actually discussing with the community first. So a hard fork 22.2 was a very difficult decision. I'd have a whole post on property rights if you want to check it out, where we decided, in the best interests of the Steem community and the years of effort and work that they've put into creating blogs and content and art and their tokens and investments and all that on the Steem blockchain, we decided temporarily to freeze the funds. Now, I didn't agree with the freezing part. I thought the liquid tokens should stay the way they are for those accounts, but the argument was made as far as don't let them vote for witnesses and don't let them power down, which would enable them to move all the funds around anyway and vote with a different account until we have a chance to actually talk to the new property owner. That was the idea. It was temporary. Let's talk to the property owner. Let's figure out what he thinks. And then the community can go decide. The community can go fork and make a new chain. The community can do whatever they want, right? But we had to understand the intentions of the new property owner. So we did. We did hard fork 22.2. Those accounts were frozen. That was not meant to be hostile. It was in no way a bunch of hackers. It was the majority of the Steem community and in the Steem community. And I would support that by saying the one witness who supported what we were doing but didn't actually, like me, didn't agree with the transfer part, like the liquid token part. Tim Cliff, he did 22.3. He did a different fork, but it was different. So he got unvoted. That to me directly demonstrates that the token holders were in support of this action and not in support of not taking action. Now, I fundamentally don't like that we had to do that quietly. There was a very serious perception at the time that there was an imminent threat to the chain, that at any moment everything was going to be taken away from them, and we needed to act quickly. So it was done kind of in secret, and again, it just maintained the status quo. It didn't actually break anything. There were no token balances changed. There was not. It was just we're putting something temporarily in place to protect the property of the Steem community. Justin did an open letter immediately. Seemed very positive. It was like, oh yeah, we're all going to work together. It's going to be great. Behind the scenes, and he set up a town hall meeting in a way in the future, March 6th. At the time, that was like weeks in the future, and it seemed kind of odd. I would imagine, if you're upset, let's talk about it right away. Let's get this resolved as quickly as possible. My initial intention was we could schedule a meeting with Justin Sun like the moment that change happened, so we could talk it through and deal with it and potentially roll it right back if we had an agreement, something like that. That was my original intention. I have a mutual friend that connected me with Justin via email, and I was trying to coordinate a meeting of witnesses so we could make that happen. Fortunately, that didn't work out that way. So there was a lot of drama. And as you then may know, Tron took over the chain. They essentially colluded with exchanges to vote with the exchange stake, which is probably, user customer stake, to put in 20 sock puppet witnesses and really control the chain and basically put it back to the way it was. And so they could move their stake. So they moved their stake, and then they, continued voting. Once Binance, Wobi, and Poloniex realized that they made a mistake, that this wasn't an imminent threat from hackers, this was actually the community consensus that they just went against. Binance, to their credit, removed their proxy, and so they stopped voting. And to the community's credit, yay, you all started withdrawing from exchanges, which is just fantastic. You started powering up your accounts, you started voting, you started proxying for witnesses, voting for witnesses. Very well done. We actually, as of this recording, we have more and more community witnesses. I think up to 10. I'd have to check right before this. It might be 5. It's probably moving all around. But we've got a lot of witnesses that are moving back into consensus, even with that large amount of Tron stake supporting these kind of fake accounts that are not really community supported at all. So we had our first discussion as a group of witnesses, stakeholders, community members, a small group with Justin Sun last night. And we talked through all kinds of stuff. Apparently somebody leaked that private conversation. That was not me, but somebody did. And you know, I wanted that conversation to be public and transparent and recorded, but I also try to respect people's privacy when they ask for that. Either way, it's out there, and so you can probably find it. But the conversation essentially was, you know, I don't know that Justin really understood what he bought. I think once again, the community's been pretty frustrated with Ned Scott and the way this was handled, and you know, it doesn't sound like Ned really explained the stake and the importance of having it not vote for governance reasons and even the Howey test. I mean, shoot, anyway, any number of reasons why that should have been. You know, read Roadmap 2017, read the original post when Steem launched. I mean, one of my posts links to some things you can check out that sets the precedent for how this stake should be used. So again, the witnesses never intended to create any hostile situation. They never intended to, do anything that was going to harm the Steem network. In fact, it was the opposite completely. It was always meant to protect people's property and find out the intention of the new property owner for the stake that already had, something behind it. So where do we go from here? What are we going to do now? Well, this is the challenge. We have to take the chain back so that the stake-weighted token holders actually are in control, voting witnesses they trust. That's step 1. Step 2 is we have to decide what we want to do as a community. Do we want to, move to a completely different ecosystem that Tron is not involved in? Do we want to try to save this relationship and make it beneficial for Tron and Steem holders? Do we want to do something else entirely? These are things that we have to figure out as a community. It's an interesting time, and we also have to make sure that we shore up delegate proof of stake. We've all seen that this was kind of a historical moment for blockchain consensus systems. DPoS, which many, Tron uses, EOS uses, a lot of blockchains use now. It's more performant, uses less energy, has some good characteristics to it. Got attacked, and it got attacked because token holders don't own their own tokens. They're actually putting them out on exchanges instead of holding their tokens and voting with their tokens, participating in governance. So that centralization becomes a cancer within a decentralized governance system. So the centralized exchanges that are able to vote with the tokens of their customers is the problem. That is fundamentally what happened here is the problem. And we also have a major problem in that Binance, for example, powered up 31 million Steem. Guess how long the power down is for that? 13 weeks. Guess what's going to happen if you try to get your tokens back from an exchange where they're all locked up and powered up? You can't. Not for 13 weeks. So this is a serious problem. And this is one that, again, not the fault of the witnesses. That's the exchanges should not have been participating in governance and using tokens that are really earmarked for their users without their consent. So we got to figure this out. What are we going to do about that? I don't know. I mean, ultimately, that's a mistake the exchange has made, and they have to figure it out. There's been discussions and talks about potentially changing the power down time. That comes with a security concern. The original power down time was 2 years. That got changed to 13 weeks. There's been discussions about changing it to 2 weeks or a week, even prior to all of this. I've also heard discussions about changing it to like a day or two, which is just insane. One that would break the entire content voting rewards distribution system, because that's a 7-day payout. There's just a whole number of reasons you can't just make it that short. I mean, definitely a security concern as well. So we have to talk it through and figure out what's best for the Steem community. As for my part, if I'm still a witness, I no longer will support pushing out code in a ninja way, like in a private way. I much prefer the community to be able to vote on witnesses, knowing full well what code those witnesses are going to deploy before they deploy it. That was, I think, a mistake. I think in terms of the way the code was deployed, the argument was made that the chain was under existential immediate threat, and the fact that Justin Sun did actually fork the chain and take it over demonstrates that that was not wrong. That was actually true. But even then, I just prefer transparency. I prefer transparency in terms of how decisions are made. And we should have, I don't know, I feel like unless there's an actual, I mean, when there's code exploits that are known and like, oh yeah, someone can actually steal people's funds and stuff, then yes, witnesses have to get together. They have to privately deploy the fix. They have to make sure everybody upgrades before they announce it. That's classic, responsible disclosure policies in technology. So I get that. As to whether or not this fit that category, it's hard to say. I think that's open to opinion. Some people think that the witness's actions provoked Justin into doing what he did. I think that's, again, open to discussion. I think ultimately the people I've worked with for a long time in the community, witnesses, stakeholders, app developers, people that have been committed to Steem for years, they didn't see it that way. They thought this was the community coming together to protect itself. And I did too. Now I fully understand the complications and concerns as far as property rights, and that's what my whole post was about. But yeah, so anyway, those are my thoughts. I think we as a community are doing an amazing job owning our own store of value, actually getting our tokens off exchanges and voting with them. That's amazing and beautiful. I'm really proud of the community for doing that. Some people have said that that's like my crusade, my Luke Skywalker crusade. That's hilarious, but it's not me. It's an entire community. So I'm not going to take credit for that, but I'm thankful to the community for what they're doing. And beyond that, we just have to come together and hopefully transparently discuss what it is we want to do next and vote witnesses accordingly. Some witnesses might want to make changes to help out the exchanges power down quicker. Some witnesses may not. I hope everyone takes a stance on what they're going to do, and you vote accordingly. Vote with your tokens according to how you want to see the Steem protocol work. That's delegated proof of stake. Beyond that, we have to make sure that this weakness doesn't happen again. We have declined voting rights operation as a part of 414. We should have, in my opinion, have exchanges, the Steem at stake, all the stake that should not be participating in governance should at the very least have that operation run so that they cannot vote. Now, obviously, they can just transfer their token somewhere else and vote there, so it's really kind of a band-aid. I think the long-term solution has to be some type of, cooling off period of sorts, so that when you create new accounts, move tokens around, power them up, something that takes into account how fresh are those tokens, and therefore limits governance based on that. That's just one idea that I've heard discussed. Again, not my idea, it's discussed from really smart people talking about this. But the idea that you could say, hey, look, if you just showed up yesterday and bought, $1 million worth of Steem, maybe we should limit your ability to define what Steem is for a little while until you're part of the actual community, right? That's the kind of, things we're thinking about. Now, of course, again, there's attack vectors to all of this. You could do an OTC sale and sell your private key and really just give someone your account, and they could vote because that account might have been, an OG account, right? So there are no easy solutions that I know of to prevent this within DPoS, and this is part of the evolution of blockchain governance. This is what's so beautiful. We're all going to keep working on this to hopefully find those solutions and implement them. But as of right now, there's no easy solutions. So anyway, I'm off to my meeting, and hopefully I'll get there sooner rather than later, because traffic sucks. This is why I work from home. Get to hang out with my kids. Not a fan of being in my car and driving like crazy. But that's my update. Hopefully it's valuable to you. If you have any questions, let me know. And Steem community, I love you. You're awesome. Thanks.